Welcome back, guys. In this video I'm going to walk you through how I use the sequencer in Arturia Pigments. Okay, so here we are in Pigments and we're going to start off with the default welcome patch, which sounds like this. So the first thing we want to do is go over to the sequencer and turn that on. Now the playback here is set to sync with the tempo and the rate is on 16ths at the moment. So if I play a note at the moment, it'll trigger on 16th notes like this. And that matches my tempo, which is set to 123 BPM at the moment. So let's change that to eighths to make it a bit simpler. So now it sounds like this. Okay, so you'll notice the steps here. We've got 16 steps, which gives us 2 bars. You can actually reduce or increase the number of steps by grabbing at the end here and sliding. So this way you can make more complex offbeat type rhythms. For this tutorial, we'll just leave it on 16 steps like that. Now the next cool thing we want to look at is this scale feature here. At the moment, it's default to contrasting minor. So let's change that to minor pentatonic. That just makes things simpler because we've just got 5 notes to work with then. Now each one of these steps we can put in a note from the minor pentatonic scale. It's defaulting to C at the moment, but if you press a note, it'll default to whatever that note is. So for example, if I press F, it'll default to F minor pentatonic. Now another thing that's worth looking at, when you tap on this scale drop down, it'll give you the notes in the scale there. And these little sliders here, if you're using the random function, these little sliders will set the probability of that note occurring in the sequence. More on that later. So for now, let's put a sequence in here. So let's start off with an F, A sharp, D sharp, G, I'll leave that one on C, D sharp again, G, we'll go back up again, A sharp. Actually, let's reduce the number of steps and just make it 1 bar. So we've just got 8 steps. That's going to be simpler. Okay, so that sounds like this at the moment. Now we can affect the way that sequence behaves by changing these settings here. I'm going to leave velocity alone for a moment, but the octave one's interesting. So if we want to put, say like that second note, we want that an octave higher, we can do that +1, so we get this. Let's put this one an octave down. Cool. Gate length determines the sustain or the release of the note that's played. They all default to 80%. If we decrease these, we'll get much faster sounds. Let's make that one longer. That one longer. See how that sounds. Next up, we've got slide. Now, used in conjunction with the gate length, this slide can be really useful for getting acid type sequences. So the ones where I've made the gate length a little bit longer, I'm going to bring up the slide time a little bit more. Let's see how that sounds. Cool. Let's make it a little bit longer. Okay, so now we've got a basic sequence in there. Let's take a look at these features here, starting with the swing. It defaults to 50%. If we put that up to 75%, we're going to get a shuffle swing type effect like this. Okay, that's pretty cool. Put that back to 50. And now we've got the play mode here. At the moment, it just plays forward. We can get it to go backward. We can get it to go forward and then backward. or we can get it to go random. And that brings us on nicely to the next feature, the random feature. So let's start again with a new sequence. Once again, we're set to 8s, we've got it on minor pentatonic, and I'm just going to play an F so we get this. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to hit this dice button, and you'll see that's selected notes for us in the sequence. We hit it again, we'll get a different pattern. Now you'll notice one of the notes there on step 5 is actually greyed out, and that's because of this probability feature here, which is on 25%. What this does is predict the probability of a note appearing on any of the steps. So that sequence sounds like this. Coming along here to the bottom, we've got this auto regen feature. So if we set that to 1 bar, this will auto-generate a new random sequence every bar, like this. Now you'll notice that as well as randomising the notes, that's also randomised the gate length and the slide. And we can have some control over that by using this probability functions here. So if we put the gate length one up to 60%, put the slide up to like 80%, we should get more variation now when it regenerates. Now, a really cool thing you can do when in random mode is lock some of those steps. And what this will do is, this will allow us to create a melody that's more cohesive by giving us some kind of motive to work around. So if I put an F on the first step here, I can go up to the top here, and you'll see that number 1 changes to a lock symbol. So if I lock that, we're always going to get an F on that first note, like this. Okay, so let's lock a couple more of those steps. Let's lock a D sharp onto 3 and an A sharp onto 7. So now those locked notes, that F, that D sharp and that A sharp, are always going to appear at the same step each time that sequence loops round, like this. And that is how I use the sequencer in Arturia Pigments.